I wanted to start something that would be for me to wear and my friends to wear and people like me. You know, something, it's not going to be your cheapest thing out there because you're paying everyone fairly, we're supporting the people who make the products, we're taking care to figure out where our materials come from and things like that. But also it's not going to be prohibitively expensive, and it's really more that middle range aspirational kind of brand. It's got a funky vibe to it, it's Cambodian inspired. I came across the word keo.kjey, and it was translated as light blue. But if you ask a Cambodian to point to something keo.kjey, they will always point to something green. Bright green, and always referring to something fresh and natural. So keo.kjey can only refer to something occurring in nature. I studied in college fashion and textiles and fine art, and afterwards I wanted to do something that was socially responsible, but also at the same time using my background. And I ended up coming to Cambodia to do research on a grant on fair trade and sustainable textiles. I was also constantly looking for clothes for myself, and I realized there was quite a market gap for products that were ethically made, that were recycled, that were sustainable, but also were fashion forward and trendy and fun and easy to wear and casual, and basically everything I wanted to wear I could not find in Cambodia. I really think that taking care of the environment and taking care of the people that work for you and also who buy your products, it goes hand in hand. You can't really have one without the other. I think we're trying to balance both of those things together, and we also, by using a lot of recycled materials, we can keep our costs slightly down and putting more into the labor. So what ends up happening is we like to try to design a product to think about how can we invest more in the people who are making it rather than in the cost of the materials. So rather than making, you know, a cheap dress with really expensive fabric, we're trying to put the value into the labor so that we return more work to our staff and more work to the Cambodian people that are working on our products. And I think that recycling is quite important. It's something that's overlooked in the industry a lot. There is an insane amount of waste that goes into landfills and gets incinerated and therefore goes into the air from garment manufacturing. Now, when we cut our fabric as well, we also consider all the waste that we make. So we're not only buying waste fabric from the garment factories, we're also using every piece of our own waste. Okay, in order to make our designs, we have to come out to the fabric recyclers about once or twice a month to find fabric, depending on what we're making and depending on what we find. And I have to buy almost 200 kilos of fabric a month, so we're recycling a pretty significant amount of fabric. This is just one of the many places that we come to. There's a number of places where people are collecting scraps from the garment factories and then they're reselling them. And most of the time they're reselling them onto smaller Khmer workshops that are making t-shirts and things and selling to the local market. I think we're one of the few foreign-based labels that shops here. So with the keo.kjey products, we also sometimes find like vintage clothes, and then we rework them and change them up a bit. We don't sell that so much for export, but in the country we do sell a lot of these kind of vintage stuff. And sometimes, most of the clothes here are coming from China, Japan, Korea, and this and that. It's kind of like aid clothing. And you find some really amazing pieces just that have been cast off, and they haven't been picked over because they're not the kind of things that a Cambodian would necessarily go for. So you find some incredible old designer label clothes that are just unbelievable, or really intricate hand embroidery or something like that. So I think that's probably the most unusual thing that I find.
Normally when we begin, we start by sourcing all of our fabrics from large factories outside of Phnom Penh. Most times they waste about 10 to 40% of raw materials. We then take that and upcycle, recycle, and use every single scrap possible to make new designs. Like this right here. This is our Mali dress. So these normally are small scraps. Each piece is probably a cutoff of a t-shirt, and it's just redesigned into something new, a typical casual tank dress. We also use smaller scraps to make more intricate things sometimes. Like all of these are little tiny scraps that are just sewn together very meticulously, and now we have a new piece.